Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Dolphin Star Temple's series of meditations. This is our special St. Valentine's Day edition. And all across the world, there are people here celebrating today. Maybe you're one of them, celebrating the role of love in your life. And we're going to celebrate the role of love in our lives here today by having an experience of being in total beingness. So, welcome, welcome to today's Dolphin Star Temple meditation. And I want to start off by giving thanks to the board of the Dolphin Star Temple, which has been doing such a fabulous job promoting and preserving the teachings of Amorah Kuan Yin. Amorah Kuan Yin was one of my personal teachers. And if you're interested in more information about Amorah Kuan Yin and would like to know more about Dolphin Star Temple, you can go online and you can visit at dolphinstartemple.org. Okay, I recommend that to you. So the title that I set for today's meditation is Take the Training Wheels Off Your Consciousness. And the idea I had when thinking about doing this meditation today was that I wanted to do something, though, help us move beyond the limitations we create for ourselves, for our consciousness. Do something that would help us in getting beyond our old habits and experiencing something new. And I had some ideas about how to do that. I came to this in part because in my own meditative practice, I have a technique that I use where I visualize a doorway. I visualize a doorway in front of me with the idea that I don't know what's behind the doorway. What's behind the doorway is the unknown. What's behind the doorway is something beyond my mind's capacity to grasp. And then I practice going through that doorway, going through that doorway and entering the realms that are wordless and indescribable. And so I practiced that, and that was part of my inspiration for doing this today. And of course, I thought about the topic, and then I thought, oh, I'm going to go find some quotations from Amorah Kuan Yin, And so I started going through a bunch of, essays by Amorah looking for something. And then I found an essay that fit my bill perfectly. I found the essay in Amorah's book, I have to hold it up here, Affinity. Affinity is a very mature book. And Affinity has a huge amount of information and wisdom in it. And it's maybe not the most read of all of Amorah's books, but when you're really ready to move on in your spiritual training, this is a book that you need to look at. Anyway, I found this essay there, and it had the kind of language describing this experience that I wanted to find. But I was a little surprised because it was an essay called Living in Beingness. It was an essay inspired by Amorah's encounters with goddess Antares. And some of you know that I'm kind of an Antares aficionado, so I was surprised that this came together that way. But Antares is one of the members of the higher council of the Dolphin Star Temple, associated with the star system Antares. And in this essay, Amorah has some beautiful descriptions of the experience of Antares. Let me read one of them. She describes the experience of being in a state of pure presence and feeling without any words in your mind defining that state. And was reading quotes like this, and I thought, yes, that is exactly what I'm looking for. Um, and so it's what I thought I would like to share with others to help others, share in this experience. So I'm once again very grateful to Amorah. Amorah introduced me to Antares when I was with her in one of her classes. And my relationship with Antares has taken me to new places in my spiritual development. Certainly opened up for me a sense of relationship with oneness that has been very transformative for me. I'll read you a little bit more what Amorah says about Antares. Amorah said, Antares holds this incredible presence of just being. When she communicates, it's through transmitting energy states. It has to do with being in a state of pure presence and feeling without any words in your mind defining that state. What does it mean to just be with no mental interpretation? She is asking you to just let go of having any need to have interpretations of her energy and to just experience it. So, our goal today is to step through the doorway into the wordless realms. And we do this by inviting the consciousness of Antares to us and blending with it. So that's the overall goal of what we're going to do. And before we start on that, I want to talk about training wheels. When I had a first bicycle that had training wheels, and I was probably only 5 years old, and the training wheels enabled me to learn pedaling and steering before I could master balancing the bike. And there was a point, though, at which it helped me enough that the training wheels could be taken off. And once the training wheels were taken off, then I could go farther and faster than I would have gone before. So I want to make the point that in many spiritual traditions, you're learning that tradition with training wheels. And you're taught procedures that keep you balanced, safe, and heading in the right direction. But their purpose is to get you to the next stage of your development. And you need to know when it's the right time to let go of the training wheels, or have the freedom to let go of the training wheels, so that you can go faster and farther in your spiritual life. So, for example, most basic traditions teach some form of setting space. And of course, setting space is there to help you be safe and secure in the work that you're doing. And maybe when you're first learning to set space, your teacher gives you exact words, and when you do this, you repeat these words, and it's a pattern that you learn. And the more you do this, the more you begin to understand and see that there's something deeper here. There's something deeper than it just being a tradition. Maybe you begin to see and feel what's happening in the higher dimensions when setting space. And when you come to that point of realization, then you're ready to set space yourself, to set space in your own way, and then to adapt it to the needs of the people who are with you. So you can see in that way that setting space is a kind of a training wheel. Once you learn how to be safe and establish a safe space, then you can do it in lots of different ways. But one question then is, okay, well, how do we move on and expand the range of our consciousness. How do we move on in the training of our consciousness as we let go of the training wheels? And this is not to say that consciousness is a thing that is limited. No, consciousness isn't limited, but there are limits to what we can do with our consciousness. And so it's not the consciousness per se. You could say it's our patterns of consciousness. So I'm going to give you a way of thinking about consciousness. It's just one of many ways, but in this way of thinking about consciousness, consciousness itself flows, and it flows through patterns. You learn certain patterns of consciousness, and once you learn them, your consciousness can move through those patterns. So it's not consciousness itself that has limitations, but we have limitations on our repertoire of patterns of consciousness. We have to start developing our patterns of consciousness. And we have some kinds of patterns of consciousness that are training wheels, so we can get a little further down the road. Maybe it's worth describing this in terms of everyday consciousness first, because when we're starting out in our lives, we're developing patterns of consciousness that are there to help us anticipate and live in the third dimensional world, patterns of consciousness that fit the physical world. So, for instance, part of our patterns of consciousness is learning that to get from one place to another, it takes time and effort. Okay, so we have a lot of patterns of consciousness that incorporate the notion of time and effort in our lives. Okay, but as you move on to experience higher realms of consciousness, the rules change. So, for instance, if you're looking at your experience in the non-physical world, what happens when your light body is in motion? Well, you discover that getting from one place to another is sometimes instantaneous. It didn't take time and effort. No, what it took was focus and intent. So you could say, well, time and time and effort get replaced by focus and intent. We have to have patterns of consciousness where we understand how focus and intention work when we're dealing with realms beyond the physical. So that's part of our experience, every one of us, as we grow and develop. Some of these patterns of consciousness that we have aren't our own inventions. We pick them up from other people. We get taught patterns of consciousness in the culture. We get taught patterns of consciousness from our parents. And so that's what happens in everyday life. But on our spiritual path, we also have a process of learning patterns of consciousness, maybe intentionally, through psychic blending. And we talked before about blending. We talked about blending as a way in which we learn to experience the consciousness of others. So what happens, if we blend with another being in a psychic way, is that in the blending, we experience some of their patterns of consciousness, and they experience some of our patterns of consciousness, and then there's an exchange that goes on. We each learn something from the other. We can learn modes of consciousness that aren't part of the life of human beings. We learn the modes of consciousness that have to go with other beings in the universe. But it's a beneficial thing in the trading and going both ways. And if we decide then that we are going to be blending with higher beings of the light, then we have the opportunity then to experience how they perceive the higher dimensions, how they perceive the spiritual realms. And then that is a way in which we get to expand ourselves. Our patterns of consciousness begin to incorporate their patterns of consciousness. We need that. We need that as a way of expanding ourselves. We need to recognize that we're sharing patterns of consciousness with a much wider community of beings besides ourselves. So our focus for today is experiencing oneness, or coming closer to experiencing the full oneness, through blending with the consciousness of Antares. Now, we can experience oneness in a lot of different ways and a lot of different levels. Sometimes people experience oneness when they're looking at the vista of Earth and looking at the beauty of Earth, and there's this sense beyond the physical that emerges, and you say, oh, I can reach out and I can touch the sense of oneness with everything that's here. And so that's certainly an experience that many of us have. We transcend the physical world in that experience. And when we're looking to transcend the world and in a way to take us to the higher realms, then we're dependent upon using our psychic capacities, or you might say the perceptual capacities of our light body, because we're out of the physical realms. You know, when we're beyond the physical realms, we don't literally have sight. We don't literally have hearing. The way that we're perceiving is really through our light body, and our light body's perception, the extraordinary perception. And it gets integrated with our neural pathways so that we have the illusions, of sight and sound. That's really the way that it works. And this happens because we have patterns of consciousness that are not rooted in the physical world. So when Amorah was talking to a group of people about her experiences with Antares, one of the ways that she described coming to this was she described it as surrender to divine flow, a very exquisite state of pure beingness, devoid of agendas and mental interpretations. So sometimes to get to this state of knowing the higher dimensional realms, these wordless states, wordless because it's moving beyond our mental capacities, we have to let go of our old patterns of consciousness. If our old patterns of consciousness are ones that hold us into logic, thinking, words, descriptions, theories, belief systems, well, then that's not the direct experience that we're looking for. And this is important to taking off the training wheels. For me personally, the consciousness of Antares has helped to bring me closer to oneness than any other influence in my life. And partially that's because in blending with Antares, it's for me a kind of a doorway into a much higher being's way of experiencing the universe. One of the unique properties of Antares is how the Antares is the same at every dimensional level, from where we meet her to where we transcend with her. And so that doorway has been really, really important to me in my development. So we're embracing new patterns of consciousness. That's what we're hoping to be able to do. That's an exciting part of our spiritual development in life, yes? So good questions would be, what are the things that help facilitate us, moving through that doorway to expanding our repertoire of patterns of consciousness? How do we acquire, these new patterns of consciousness. And of course, we want to move past our old patterns, because old patterns can act as like preconceptions, and then our preconceptions get superimposed over new experiences, so that we don't really take in the full impact of the new experiences because we're seeing it through an old lens, you know. So some things that are general pointers and helpful tips, you know, for being able to um, move past where you are into new realms. You know, one is first to acknowledge that sometimes fear can, you know, emerge when the training wheels are removed. That's a fear, a natural fear of what's unfamiliar to us. And we need to acknowledge that so that we're not looking to suppress the fear. But it then helps us to find the courage that we need to take these steps, to take a risky step, you know, into something unknown. And of course, another side of this is that when we're taking that kind of a step, there's you know, a potential for excitement. You know, it's very exhilarating sometimes to go to places beyond your imagination. And that certainly is what we're trying to do, to go beyond our imagination with this. So things that help us in this process, you know, one is then consciously knowing that you want to let go of your preconceptions. Sometimes when we're doing meditations and we're encountering something unknown, you know, we pull up what's familiar and what we know how to do and what we know how to see, and try to put it over the new experience, because, well, that's, you know, that's what we're supposed to do, isn't it? No, you know, control it, to verify what we've known. And of course, in that process, we don't learn anything really new. So we need to let go of preconceptions, you know, especially preconceptions that come from our 3D thinking about the physical world. And what are some other ingredients important for having these kinds of experiences? One is the importance of moving into neutrality, to be in a place of neutrality with yourself, where all outcomes and all appearances are equally acceptable, to let go of approving or disapproving, or judging that something is right or wrong. The way that you steer yourself in through these experiences is by being a blank slate, to be a blank slate and let new information register itself on you. Just be open as a blank slate. You're there to be written upon with new patterns of consciousness. And of course, then, too, we always navigate through the higher dimensional worlds by intent. Intent is what moves us from one place to another. And we need to be able to hold intent without forcing it. This is intent without the pressure of will. To hold intent as a thing of beauty, to hold it in a kind of neutrality. And when we do that, we have the greatest possibility that our intents will take us to where we want to be. So our intent for today is to blend with the consciousness of Antares, in that way to experience oneness at a deeper level. So other things I think I've heard people say, one is to keep it simple. You know I've talked a lot already, but in the end, the action of stepping through the doorway is a simple thing. It's a simple thing, and it's almost a childlike thing, to just step into the wonder, to let it happen, to let yourself be moved, and be present in the joy of discovery. And that's an act of surrender. We surrender when we pass through the doorway to this new experience. We surrender to divine flow. We let ourselves be taken by the waves of progress, by the waves of energy to where they want to take us. So that's all my best advice, I think. So, okay, so we're going to get around to a meditation now. And there'll be 4 steps to the meditation. The first is setting space around us. And the second, we will be bilocating to the city of light at Mount Shasta. And then the third, preparing ourselves to move through the doorway. And then blending with the consciousness of Antares on the other side of the doorway. Okay, I hope that all makes sense. So let's prepare ourselves and start by setting space. And I invite you to close your eyes. Close your eyes and just attend to the space around your body. Visualize that everything around you is slowing down. It's going slower and slower and slower. Let it slow down to a point where the world around you is coming to a complete stop, and that you are in the center of the stillness. You are in stillness, and you can let go of everything else. And I invite you to turn your perception to the light within yourself. Give all your attention to the light within yourself, and you can focus in the area of the heart, all the light within yourself in the heart area. Focus there as if there is nothing else other than that light. Ask that that light within you radiate out the energy of your pure essence. It is your light, the pure energy of who you are, your identity, your true identity, who you are as your true self. Let that light and that energy just sing out. This is you. This is for you. Now visualize that that light within you expands. The light, the field of light grows larger and larger. Let that light fill the space of your body. Your divine light from within yourself, filling the space of your body. And let that light shine out until it fills all the space of your aura. To fill all the space of your aura, your divine light. And there you are as a being of pure light. Now, in alignment with our intention to blend with the consciousness of Antares, we're going to use tools that have been given to us from the high dimensions of Antares. Ask now for an Antares sphere of oneness to be placed all around and through you. We ask for direct intervention immediately, to be surrounded by an Antares sphere of oneness. And in this way, we surrender ourselves into alignment with oneness. We align our lives with the inner truth, the divine truth of the oneness of all things. And now there are 4 additional spheres that we'll move through. The first now then is to also ask for an Antares sphere of purity. We ask for an Antares sphere of purity around us and through us. And by this, we ask to simplify ourselves. Simplify ourselves down to our true selves, to release all other aspects of ourselves. Every piece of light that we carry that's not in alignment with our true selves, we ask to release. We ask for an Antares sphere of purity. And we ask for an Antares sphere of balance. And by asking for balance, we ask that every flow of energy in ourselves be balanced in such a way that we move into perfect stillness, to move ourselves into perfect balance and stillness, to calm down all the turbulation of energy in our light body. And we ask for an Antares sphere of clarity, an Antares sphere of clarity which broadens our awareness into the multidimensional realms. The clarity is to be connected to all dimensions. That is how we see our true nature. We ask to embrace our multidimensional selves, and we ask for an Antares sphere of clarity. And we ask for an Antares sphere of harmony. And by that, we ask to transcend beyond ourselves and to blend with all that is, to see ourselves as part of the great ocean of light, the great ocean of light that is all that is, that we are it and it is us. All of these spheres work on our energy systems from the inside, changing us in our pure, pure light. And let's ask now for a field of bilocation to be placed around you. Ask for a field of bilocation to be placed around you. In this way, we move all of our energy to another physical location or another etheric location while holding it intact. Ask for a field of bilocation. And ask that you are bilocated to the Mount Shasta city of light. Ask to be carried, ask to be bilocated to the Mount Shasta city of light. And there to be taken to a place of total stillness. To be in a place of total stillness in the city of light at Mount Shasta. And here now in this great meeting space for beings from so many worlds and so many dimensions, If you have personal guides who you would like to ask to be with you, ask that they join you here now. Ask that they be with you here. I ask you now also to ask for the presence of guides from the most highly evolved worlds, the most highly evolved worlds, which includes the system of Antares. These are the worlds that have evolved their closest relationship to oneness. We ask for guides from the most highly evolved worlds. And now let's affirm that we let go of any preconceptions we have about where we're going. We let go of our personal identity. We stay simple. We attend to the sensations that we feel in our light bodies. And now visualize, if you would, that directly across from you is a doorway that stands there by itself. You don't know what's behind the doorway, but you know that the space there behind the door opens to the higher dimensional realms where you will meet the consciousness of Antares. Rise and walk to the doorway. Just walk and stand in front of the doorway. And I repeat again some of Amorah's words about what we are being invited to. We are being invited to the incredible presence of just being, communication through transmitting energy states, a state of pure presence and feeling without any words in your mind, to just be with no mental interpretation, and to let go and just experience it. And we can state our intention. Let us say, I wish to move beyond my old patterns of consciousness. I wish to move beyond my old patterns of consciousness. And I ask for communion with the consciousness of Antares. I ask for communion with the consciousness of Antares. And releasing divine flow, allow yourself to pass through the doorway. Allow yourself to be embraced by the consciousness of Antares and to be taken to wherever it is that she's ready to guide you. If you need help, remember your intention. Call upon the consciousness of Antares and repeat your intention to yourself. Whatever it is you experience, it's the right experience for you. Open yourself up to accept the kind and quality of experience that you have. If you need additional focus, ask to be taken to the realms of oneness, to experience oneness beyond all the limitations of the physical world, to experience oneness as it's known to those most highly evolved worlds. Let us welcome the consciousness of Antares into our lives. And let a higher awareness of oneness register in us, maybe without words, without understanding, as a sense of pure being, to hold the oneness, to know that we're children of this oneness. That oneness can inform every aspect of our lives. I'd like to take us to closing by quoting the words that Amorah Kuan Yin used in the session that she describes in her essay and living and beingness, words she used in her session uh, when the goddess Antares was there. She said, "Become aware that you are sitting on a chair or couch and feel your body's contact points with your feet on the floor. Become aware of the room around you, gently opening your eyes and coming back to the room. Do not adjust yourself to the facade you normally show to others. Take a moment to allow yourself to remain in this state of beingness with your eyes open." Very slowly, look around the room without interpreting what you see. You are so beautiful right now. What would it feel like to let people see you in this simple, deeper place? Maintaining this simple presence. Close your eyes for just a moment and tune in inside. Without brainstorming about it. Breathe into your heart and feel what you want for yourself. From the deepest place in your heart of hearts, what do you want to give to yourself right now? What qualities do you want to become a part of your life? Just feel it without mental analysis. Make a pact with yourself, your higher self, and guides to give this to yourself. And now open your eyes. welcome back. So um, I once again want to mention that Amorah's essay of her encounter with Antares is in the book Affinity. It's chapter 14. It's a good read, which we've done a good introduction to here today. And I think at the beginning, I forgot to say that I'm Gary Kendall. I'm a minister of the Dolphin Star Temple and a student of Amorah Kuan Yin. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to look quickly to see if, oh yeah, there are some messages. I figured out how to see them. So hello to you everywhere in the world where you are, in Ecuador, Mexico, and Europe and the United States. So beautiful to see you all. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And I hope that this has been a useful and meaningful experience for you. Okay, so from deep in the heart of Sweden, where we have lots of snow, I say goodbye.